From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, and I'm joined once again by new dad, 12 Politics editor Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is U.S. Attorney for Rhode Island, Zachary Cunha. Welcome to the program. It's good to have you.
Tim, Ted, thanks for having me here.
All right, I want to start here. I sat down with former North Kingstown students for their first television interview. It aired this week, who say they were subjected to naked fat tests by their then basketball coach, Aaron Thomas. The full report is on WPRI.com. But I do want to play just a little bit of sound from that interview. Each of the students say, putting Thomas aside, the school department as a whole let them down because their warnings about what was going on fell on deaf ears. Let's take a listen.
So that was one of the driving forces for us speaking up early on. And we had a couple goals. One was to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else and isn't happening to anyone else. And two, something was broken and we needed to fix it. And so we didn't know that it was still going on when we first kind of started out, but we didn't want to take that chance. We were like, look, we have to keep pushing this on the off chance that it is still going on today. And it was a punch in the gut to hear that it was still going on, so many years after we experienced it when we did.
The punch in the gut was not to know that it was still going on, was to know that people in charge knew about it, knew that it was deceitful, and chose to do nothing.
So as you heard there, Attorney Cunha, those students are most upset with the inaction by the school department. Your office is right now conducting a civil rights investigation into the school district, and I realize as U.S. Attorney you loathe to talk about active investigations, but can you weigh in a little bit on what they're talking about? Is that what people should be thinking is the focus of your investigation, what the school officials did or did not do?
That's exactly right. And first of all, listening to the accounts of students past and more recent is heartrending, and you really feel the difficulty that those allegations that they're raising must have imposed on their lives. But as far as what we're looking at, you're absolutely correct. It's a federal civil rights investigation under Title IV of the Civil Rights Act. It's looking at the school district and the alleged failure to have adequate policies, procedures, and measures in place that would protect students from this kind of activity. And the question for us is A, what happened historically, and B, what measures need to be put in place to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again in the future.
So depending on whether your office determines if there needs to be a remedy in North Kingstown, and whatever that remedy might look like, do you think it's important that you take that action prior to the start of the 2022-23 school year?
Well, I can tell you that's my goal. We launched this investigation, I think it was publicly reported about 10 days after I came into office. And we've been pursuing it aggressively. And because the focus of our investigation is on remedy and making sure that institutionally you don't have a failure going forward if ultimately we find that a remedy is necessary, my goal is that we take action before the start of the school year. And
final question on this. Generally speaking, in Title IV civil rights investigations, what are potential remedies? What could those look like?
It varies widely and is going to depend on the specific facts that are found at the end of the investigation. It could involve compliance measures, it could involve some sort of monitoring, it could involve reporting and oversight. But basically the goal is that when somebody comes forward with an allegation that the institution doesn't fail them, that the institution takes appropriate steps or refers it out to appropriate outside sources so that there can be investigation. So you don't have a situation where it simmers for years or even decades.
Turning to a different topic, marijuana is now legal at the state level in Rhode Island, but of course remains illegal at the federal level. It seems like there's at this point sort of a tacit agreement or decision at DOJ that in these jurisdictions like now Rhode Island, where the state level policymakers have made that legal, it is not going to be a priority for federal prosecutors who still under the law could be prosecuting marijuana crimes to go after those. Is that fair to say?
Well, I would view it as a matter of enforcement authority and enforcement priority rather than a question of a tacit agreement. I mean, when I am thinking about how am I going to allocate the resources in my office, there were, I think, 435 opioid deaths in the state of Rhode Island last year, and that number may actually increase when they finish going through the data. Is that where we're going to focus our resources, or are we going to focus on low-level marijuana prosecutions that, frankly, we haven't done in a very long time? That's not a federal priority, and that's not where we're focusing our efforts.
I like to look at the U.S. Sentencing Commission data to get a barometer on the focus of your office with criminal cases, specifically, obviously not civil. For the 2021 fiscal year, which ends in October with the feds, the number one type of case on the list for criminal sentencing were drug crimes. 37%, doesn't surprise you. Not to put you on the spot, but do you have a guess as to what the second most was?
I mean, I think violent crime would probably be category number 2. It certainly should be, given the focus on community safety that we have.
Gun crimes, I think, was third. I don't have it in front of me, but it was actually, again, for 21, it was fraud. And I wondered if that was directly related to all the federal relief money that has poured into the country, and it does seem like your office has been aggressively going after that.
Absolutely we have. And I mean, I think, frankly, I don't know how the numbers will pan out for this year, but those are definitely the top 3 if you want to talk about categories. And I think in the past 6 months, we've either brought or resolved about 25 separate fraud matters, and certainly a significant number of those have to do with pandemic fraud, relief funds that were paid out related to COVID paycheck protection and other programs. There's a lot of fraud going on out there, and we are very vigilant in trying to protect Rhode Islanders from that.
Just follow up on that. Are you finding that a big number of these fraud cases, the bad guys are overseas, and at the end of the day, it'll be largely untouchable? They will be largely untouchable with these cases?
Well, we have a long reach, and that's certainly true in some cases. We have networks of individuals, some of whom are here in Rhode Island, some of whom are in other states, some of whom are abroad. So there are cases where we can't reach everybody, but we try as best we can. And we certainly, we've recently brought prosecutions against individuals who are, here and in other states using homeless individuals to cash checks at banks and conduct fraud that way. We've had romance scams where people pretend to be somebody's significant other online and convince them to send funds, or
catfishing.
Catfishing in a variety of forms. So we have all types of fraud, and we go after all of them aggressively as we can.
Speaking of pandemic relief funds, we've reported, though your office hasn't confirmed it, that federal investigators have joined Attorney General Peter Narona's examination of the controversial ILO Group contract that the McKee administration awarded. I've been around long enough to know you're not going to get into the details of the substance of that investigation, but I will say this, this issue is hanging over the current election, and primary voters are going to the polls in just under 3 months, and general election voters shortly after that. Will there be a resolution on this, or will voters have to go to the polls just with those headlines in their heads, not knowing where that's going?
Well, again, I want to be careful about what I say about this. I will say it's common for us to conduct a review of conduct that's brought to our attention, and whether that review ultimately ripens into some kind of enforcement action, civil, criminal, or otherwise, depends on the outcome. And it's also common for us to partner with our law enforcement colleagues on the state side to look into issues. As far as where we are in the election cycle, all I can say is it's a matter of longstanding DOJ policy about what we do publicly and what we say publicly overtly in the context of an election. And frankly, if you're curious, the U.S. Attorney's Manual speaks more eloquently than I could about what is and isn't appropriate in the context of an election.
Are there firm timelines in that manual for you? I mean, we all know how this tripped up Jim Comey in the Hillary Clinton email investigation repeatedly about how he should be handling something as it got close to the election. Is there sort of a black and white for you and the other U.S. attorneys on, like, if we're 90 days out, stay in quiet mode so that you're not sort of messing with the election?
It's not hard and fast. It's a question of judgment.
But is it on your mind?
The way that we handle all of our investigations and how they're publicly perceived, so that they're perceived to be fair to everybody concerned, that's always on my mind.
I want to shift gears to guns, which have been in the headlines so much. I mean, a lot of legislation has been proposed to handle gun control in the wake of some awful mass shootings. But I talk to law enforcement regularly, and what I am hearing more and more from in the trenches is ghost guns. They're investigating shootings in which a ghost gun, which is an untraceable homemade gun, those are used. Are there federal laws that would address the influx of ghost guns, and is this issue on your radar screen?
Absolutely, that issue is on our radar screen, and I would agree with you that we're seeing ghost guns show up in more and more types of crime across the spectrum, whether it's drug crime, gun crime, or otherwise. And I will say we try and use all the tools that are available to us, whether it's the traditional tools of prosecuting somebody who's not entitled to be in possession of a firearm of whatever stripe because they've been previously convicted of a felony or because they have mental health issues or an order of protection. I will say that the administration has rolled out relatively new regulations this year regarding prosecutions of ghost guns under existing federal law. So that's an issue we'll be looking at, and if there are appropriate opportunities to do that, we'll do that.
I covered quite a few federal, state prosecutions of high-level politicians in Rhode Island, but I'll admit, I often hear from viewers who think there isn't enough. They think they see bad behavior all the time, and they wish they saw even more aggression by law enforcement. I know that's a balance, but I will say, even as a reporter, sometimes I see things go by my desk and I think, wow, that looks like there might be some criminal activity here, and then I don't know that there's any review. How do you do have limited resources.
We do.
You see that you have access to the same news stories as we do. How do you make those decisions day to day on, that looks a little funky, but we also have all these things we're working on? How do you decide, especially when it involves public corruption, what to put your office's resources into?
Well, step one is knowing about it. So I guess my rejoinder to that would be, if you see something, say something. Don't hesitate to reach out to us or the FBI if you have a concern, because people talk about public corruption and they tend to think of that in very grand terms. But from our perspective, anything that impairs people's confidence in their government at any level, whether it's local, municipal, or higher, is a concern. And so what we look at in terms of what...
People can be cynical about that, not to interrupt you, Zach, but people think, oh, yeah, I'll send a tip in. They're never going to read it. They're busy. They don't care what the Joe Schmoes. Is that not true? Is that a false impression of the public?
That is a false impression. I mean, we are very attentive to those. If there is legitimate information that people are bringing to our attention, as opposed to just, I'm grieved with someone because I didn't get a permit to cut down my tree, that's something that we take very seriously. And that cases are developed that way. And cases are developed, frankly, from media reports that we see, and we think that merits attention. And often it turns on questions of, A, is there federal money involved? B, obviously in any case we're looking to what kind of evidence can we develop, and can we prove the requisite intent and the requisite, depending if you're talking about a quid pro quo in a political context. But we look at those cases very seriously because they are important to combat that cynicism and give people confidence that they're getting good judgment out of their government and not people who are on the take.
You were sworn in December. What is the thing that has surprised you most about the job so far?
The variety of matters that come across our desks on a daily basis, and actually the impact that we have, not just in terms of headlines or outcomes or sentences, but when you actually sit with the victims of some of these cases and the effect that our taking action has on their lives. That's what's probably had the biggest impact on me.
Only about 30 seconds left. You are a George Washington University Law School graduate.
I am.
Your alma mater announced this week they're getting rid of the name Colonials. What do you think?
Well,
support or oppose?
Yeah.
I leave that to their good judgment. Honestly, I think that's a decision for GW and how they want to proceed.
All right, Zachary Cunha, U.S. Attorney for the District of Rhode Island. It was great having you on the program.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
When we come back, more from our exclusive interview with those North Kingstown high school students. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi, and we welcome Target 12 investigative reporter Eli Sherman for a reporters roundtable here. Gentlemen, on Thursday we brought our interview with 5 former North Kingstown high school students who were subjected to years of naked fat tests by their former basketball coach Aaron Thomas. Eli, you were in the room with me for this interview, which happened late last week, and there was this moment during the interview that was pretty stunning to us, and we've been reporting on this since we broke the story last fall. So it was surprising putting that into context. As we reported, and I want to play that moment for everybody here, as we reported, the school department bought a piece of equipment to do these fat tests in the open of the locker room in 2018 so they wouldn't be done behind closed doors in the basketball coach's office. Take a listen as to what one of the students say happened after that equipment was brought in.
Yeah, a machine was brought in, and I was still subject to what he called puberty tests, in which I was naked in his office. Just once again, I mean, he didn't do the typical skin caliper method of testing after we got the machine, but I was still subject to random puberty tests.
I experienced something to a similar extent where he would run his hands over my abs, down towards my groin, under the pretext that once you hit puberty and start to develop muscles, you'll get cut there. You'll get muscle cuts there. He would do it between your pectoral muscles as well. But yeah, largely the outside edges of your abs leading into your hips. He'd trace his fingers along that, checking to see if you had hit puberty.
That entire report is worth a listen. It's on WPRI.com. Eli, days after our interview, this also came up. These puberty tests also came up in the report commissioned by the North Kingstown Town Council and conducted by retired Judge Susan McGurl. But this is, as I said, we've been reporting on this since fall. This is a new, and I would say it's an upsetting wrinkle.
Yeah, and just like you said, when we were in the room, when the word puberty test came up, we both sort of were taken aback. Right. And you even followed up on it saying, pointing out that we've been looking at this for so long. I think that what that really showed in that interview is that in 2018, there were concerns raised about these naked fat tests, and they made what now appears to be a very failed attempt at trying to address it by buying this machine that went into the locker room. And the fact that, this former student was still subjected to being put behind closed doors and still got, told to get naked shows how there was a true lack of oversight or follow-up on the part of the school department to see if this machine was actually doing what they had intended, which was to remove it from his office. So, a lot of questions that still need to be answered about that. And as we had talked about, and as you heard on the top of the show, there are a couple investigations that are still looking at it.
And, listening to I wasn't in the room with you guys, I was there as we were putting the pieces together, but I flash back, and I know you remember this, you were already a reporter, I was still a student, but when the Catholic Church scandal broke in Boston and in Massachusetts, it just rocked all of Eastern Massachusetts, where we both were at the time. And when you heard the stories of the individuals, I remember how powerful that was with the church abuse scandal, and again, listening to those, they're not boys, they're men now, but they were teenage boys when this happened. Talk about and frankly, teenage boys they were jocks. I mean, these are not, Shrinking Violet type of guys, as far as I can tell, based on your reporting. And it just makes you wonder, what are we going to hear from the Attorney General in particular? Zach Cunha, as he said, the U.S. Attorney is looking at the civil rights piece of it. Attorney General Peter Arona is looking at whether criminal charges should be filed here, and it does sound like he's close to deciding.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, our Chelsea Jones in 12 News at 4 asked him, just that, when will you make a decision on it? And here's what he had to say about that.
We're nearing the end of what we need to do. Look, there's a lot of allegations here. If you just read the judge's report, as I did today, I think it goes over 100 pages with exhibits. There's a lot of people to interview and a lot of information to sort through. So we're nearing the end of it. I expect something to announce, within a few weeks. There's no secret that there are a lot of allegations involving a lot of people who may have been victimized. There are allegations at this point, but obviously that means you have to sort through them all. You have to have a lot of people to interview, both in terms of potential, again, alleged people who might have been subject to fat testing, and then also administrators who may have been aware of it. So there's a lot to sort through, but we're moving through it, I think, quickly, and we should have something to report back within a few weeks.
And again, just not to overdo the comparison, but again, what reminds me of the Catholic Church abuse scandal is it's not just about, just as it wasn't about each individual priest, it's not just about Aaron Thomas, it's about the ever-lengthening list, seemingly, of administrators and others who had some ability to know about this, and the institution protected both Thomas and kind of closed ranks. And that's exactly what we saw in the church, and look what it's done to the church for 20 years.
Yeah, and we should note that Thomas has, through an attorney, repeatedly denied all wrongdoing. Obviously, he has not been charged, but we keep hearing, we've heard from Nerona, several months ago, it's going to be a couple of months, that was, 3 months past, and it's clear from that answer that the number of people his office, his investigators are talking to is mushrooming. They also have to navigate the statute of limitations on whatever statutes they're looking at, which can vary depending on the age of the person making the allegation, and he will have a decision to make. If he feels like there is a there, is he going to put this before a grand jury and have a grand jury decide if there's enough probable cause to file a charge? Or his other option is to do what's called information and to charge independently as the Attorney General. And there are pros and cons to both of those, but we have seen Peter Nerona kind of back away from the grand jury process on big cases like this because it prevents him from, whatever he decides to do. I think what I expect, don't know, but I expect he's going to want to talk about what was behind his decision, because we've seen him do that in previous cases.
Yeah, and I think it should come as no surprise, maybe to us anyways, that that his investigation has mushroomed. The number of people that he's talked to has grown. As it did with us. When we first reported the story way back in November, whatever it was now, we didn't really know where it was going to go, and immediately, I mean, the calls and the emails from all of the other people that had also gone through, and as we know from gone through these tests, and as we know from our reporting, and now from a couple different independent reports, this has been going on since the early 1990s. That is a long time, and it wasn't just basketball players, it was other athletes from other teams, both football, soccer, that were also doing these naked fat tests. So it's possible that he started thinking he was going to talk to maybe a couple dozen people, and now it's much more.
And the other thing people at home should understand about this story is that now, because it's in the headlines seemingly weekly, if not daily, and there's all this information has come out, it seems obvious. Of course, there'd be all this law enforcement activity. Some of these, the young men, or now not young, but the men who experienced this, felt when you were initially interviewing them that they had tried to raise a red flag and no one cared. So this is not how their experiences felt until just the last X number of months since our first report aired.
Yeah, I mean, look, I remember, Eli, early on, you reached out to some of these former students, and they were like, well, we've tried talking to reporters before, and I think your response was, you haven't talked to me, right? And so they were reluctant even journalistically to speak out about that. Look, we have a few minutes left, and Ted, I don't want to waste the opportunity that you're sitting here to kind of walk us through something. I want to shift gears to the State House, and what a busy week at the State House. I want to start with the gun control laws that passed, changing the age to buy a gun to 21, can't carry a loaded rifle in public, and the most controversial, limiting the number of bullets in a magazine to 10. The Senate President, Ted,
for everyone, not just Ted,
had to pull some parliamentary trickery here to make it happen. Walk us through
Yes,
it.
of course, he would challenge you on the word trickery, Tim,
right.
because he did follow the Senate rules. It's just a more obscure section of them. But so we knew the Senate was going to be the harder place for these three bills to get through, because the Senate Judiciary Committee, while dominated by Democrats, was dominated by gun rights supporting Democrats with good marks from the NRA. And as we expected, the high capacity magazines got there. The vote was very tight, and West Warwick Democrat John Burke voted against, and they wound up with a tie vote, 6-6, which means the bill dies. But, little schoolhouse rock for us here, most of the time in the Rhode Island General Assembly, all the bills actually exist twice. There's a House version of it and a Senate version. In the end, they become identical, and they're sent on to the governor, and he signs them and there's one law after that. But having two bills lets a senator take credit and a rep take credit. But it worked out for leadership in this case for a different reason. The Senate Judiciary Committee killed the Senate bill of the high-capacity magazines ban, but in his back pocket, Senate President Ruggiero still had the House House bill for the ban, which had been sent over when the House passed it, rather than send that to the Judiciary Committee where it would face the same, the same vote and would die, he used a rule in the Senate rules and sent it straight to the Senate floor, bypassed the committee where he had majority support, and it passed. Now, obviously, that was within the rules. The gun control advocates say, look, it had majority support on the Senate floor, so it was right to bring it up. Second Amendment advocates crying foul in a big way, saying, we went through the normal process in this bill. We got the votes, convinced enough Judiciary Committee members to kill it, and the leadership went around that usual system in order because it was a priority, which is frankly what happened. But they had the votes, and that's what they did.
Do you think there could be 1 minute left here, Ted? Do you think there could be political fallout for that? Could this energize? Could it be problematic for the Democrats at the State House come the fall and energize a group to vote Republican because of what happened here?
I think certainly we've seen, just as with the abortion issue, there are many passionate gun rights supporters who will make this, the number one issue as they're deciding in a primary. That said, in most of Rhode Island, these elections for lawmakers are decided by Democratic primaries. And so for Dominic Ruggiero, for example, who faces a progressive primary challenge and has been moving to the left, he's had an NRA A rating. He's not going to have that anymore, but they feel that he's more likely to win a Democratic primary having gotten a new gun restriction through otherwise. So it really comes down to district by district. But I do imagine Second Amendment advocates will be energized for this fall.
All right. Ted Nesi, Eli Sherman, thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.